there's only 2 people. There's been like waiting lists forever.
I know, that's what I've been curious about, if they just limited to such a small group.
No, there's probably, well, when we did it 2 years ago, there was like 20 something.
Really?
And then a couple people never showed up. We didn't have there was no Zoom back then. It's always been a big class.
But even with the people that are online and people per person,
Yeah,
the maximum is like 7 or 8.
Yeah, I'm surprised. I don't think a lot of people even knew because it got skipped last year.
But it was kind of last minute.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, let's send us an email. Invited all the candidates, but most of us have already taken it.
All right. Okay. Well, now that we have the technical aspect out of the way, so I'm Chief Lopez. I think now we've met.
I'm Brian Taylor.
Mo Lopez, good to
I
meet
live
you.
up in Towers.
Okay. All right. Great. Raquel said we may only have a few participants in person, and everyone else should be may join us online.
Simulator time for us.
Yeah, which is what I'm going to do. Y'all just hang the tank for me.
Sure.
Should have it's up and running.
Listen, I really like Public Works.
Yeah, I wanted to see that one too, but I'm gonna be out of town.
So imagine it's like my 90s when I went to Westbury. The chemistry lab, you know how that, even when you went, it's probably the same high school chemistry lab. That's how the whole building feels.
Mhm.
Everything about it is stuck in the 70s.
Oh, really?
So the guys couldn't be any nicer. So it's good that you can see the whole treatment and they give you the whole process. And these guys couldn't be greater.
Yeah, I was kind of disappointed. Hey,
How's it going? Right.
that I wasn't gonna be able to attend that one. Yeah, this one and that one are the most interesting.
Yeah, the parks one was good because like you learn where there's like 2 hidden parks and then which one is behind an office building. That's just a piece of land like on Valerie off Avenue B.
Yeah.
And then like there's like a breezeway. I'm like, that's my life. They probably name a park after me and it's just a strip. But I guess it's still honored. But so I did the park one that one.
They, I was the only one that signed up for it.
Oh,
And I
one.
told, and the other one, they just,
Canceled.
supposedly they canceled it, and, said, well, I don't want anybody on Saturday. I'm retired, I can go
Right.
anytime, so.
Yeah, because they rented a bus for us. It was like they pulled all the stops. I was like, you know, and plus, so like when I ran in 2015. So the city manager put on this tour for the candidates as well. And I rented like this 18-passenger van. So I've been on a bunch of these. So it's like each time it's like, oh, it's a different skew on this. You know? So I'd seen it, but the wastewater is still my favorite.
Mhm.
But I'm sure if you ask, they'll let you go. See it again. The parks you really missed up, and they take a bus. And look, there's a park there.
Mhm.
There's a park there. There's a park there. And then we got out and spun and whatever. It was like 40 degrees that day. So I remember we were all bundled up and they took a picture of us on the swing set that we just put in at Jaquette Park. And all you see is people in jackets because we were freezing. But that one was good. I did more meetings, there's only 3 of us. This one's the good one to go to. That's why I wanted to come to this one again. I was telling them. You get to see the whole police station. It's interesting. You know, to see, he'll take us through all the stuff. Yeah. Figured more people would attend this one. But
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the people online are there to see everything that we do.
yeah, 'cause I think I didn't even know this room was wired. Maybe it's just like a phone thing. I don't know.
And we're based on-
That's one of the other things that always, these people sign up to be on boards, commissions, right? And they only meet once a month. And then they can't ever make it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you knew ahead of time.
Committed.
Why didn't you, you know, unless you're some ER doctor, I guess, that got called in or, but they never understood how they missed so much stuff. What did you sign up for?
commitment doesn't mean the same thing for everybody.
Right.
Yeah. True. Totally changed.
I have an example, later example, an act, a theater, right? We have a play, we have a cast. And we have shows at the end of the month, and at the next month. One of the actors bought herself a ticket to the opera for one of those nights. We knew. We've been rehearsing for months.
Right.
We knew the date.
Yeah.
I want to take her, and she screamed with for everybody.
Yeah. Makes you think twice to do it again.
But, I mean, I just don't get it.
Anybody joined us? Yes. All right, great. So we have a couple people online. How long do you want to wait?
Maybe a couple more minutes.
Okay. All right. Hello, I'm Chief Lopez. I'm sure you met Raquel already.
My name's Officer Chase Saketo.
Chase,
Yes,
I'm Brian.
nice to meet you, sir.
I'm Christian.
Christian?
I mean, this is.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's it going?
How long are you with Bellaire?
I've been here about 6 years, actually, next week here. So,
Time fly by.
right? Flying by. It is crazy. It hit me a little bit when I hit my 5 years and they were like, oh, here's the little packet, you get your 5-year gift or whatever it was.
Right.
I was like, oh my God, I've been here for 5 years already, and now it's 6 years next week. So it's flying by.
And before you know it, it's.
Yeah, exactly. So
What Lopez says, huh?
what's that?
So that's what
Oh,
Lopez
yeah,
says, huh?
exactly. Yeah. He's been here forever. So
Yeah, I remember when he was a rookie.
really? Man. He's probably got another 10 years in him too.
Yeah, it's funny, some people don't seem to age.
Yeah. It's like my father-in-law. My father-in-law is our bailiff here. And he's been in law enforcement for 80 years now. And I'm sorry, been in law enforcement for 50 years. He just turned 80. He's just one of those guys who just can't sit still. He's got to be doing something. So
Oh, what's the Merrick?
Joe Merrick, he's retired.
Like, I saw him for jury duty.
Yeah.
He's the bailiff. He
Yeah.
likes to talk. He's
Oh
got
my gosh,
stories.
yeah.
Oh, man. Well, did Robichaux not bailiff anymore?
No, he finally ended up retiring completely. Yeah. So and that happened last year I think it was.
Because he retired before, and then one day I had jury duty another time, and I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah, Roby, he retired finally, like real retired, I think last year. Or maybe it was 2 years ago. I think it was
I
last
didn't
year.
see him in whatever the last picture I saw online.
Yeah.
I was like, one bailiff.
Yeah.
Good.
But yeah, I think Roby finally's on I think he's on a beach in Galveston, the Galveston beach. Living with his nephew. That's the last I heard. So, but, yeah. Yeah, my father-in-law, he retired from the sheriff's office, and then precinct 7, he retired from them, the constable's office. And then he was just sitting there in retirement and just can't sit still, so.
You can still do it at 80.
Yeah, and he's got a young heart, like you would never think he's 80.
No, he wouldn't.
Yeah.
He doesn't look 80.
No, he doesn't look 80 at all.
He doesn't act 80 at all.
He's not active. So how's everyone doing tonight? Good? Good deal. Is it usually this many or is it a couple more that usually show up?
It's usually about 4.
4?
Last time we're at
Okay,
2 last night.
gotcha.
Just a candidate.
Oh, they usually show up, all the
Most of them have
candidates?
already done it,
Okay,
so they invited us again.
2 in the room, but 2 on Zoom.
oh, okay, yeah, there's 2 on Zoom right now. So.
Presentation.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. We'll know, what we're gonna be talking about next. I think that we've waited long enough. We have a couple of our friends online. So sounds like you might be letting somebody else in, but we're gonna get started in just a minute.
One more sheet.
Okay, great. And my handout? All right, awesome. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. I've introduced myself already a couple times, but I'll do it again. I'm Chief Lopez. I am Chief of Police here. I have the honor of being the Chief of Police here for the city of Bellaire. I've been here, officially been the chief since August 1st-ish. So that makes it August, September, 2 whole months. So it's been fun. It's been exciting. It was an interesting transition period for me because it seemed like everything was on fire. My hair was on fire, the floor is on fire, the building's on fire, and I'm just trying to put everything out. But now the things have leveled off. I've been on the job 2 months. I've gotten everything more or less leveled off, and I can actually now start to breathe a little bit. So it's so that's a good thing. So we have a semi-structured presentation for you all today. We're going to talk a little bit about just so you know some of the things that we're going to talk about, and I doubt this is going to work.
Do they hear you? Is that a microphone?
Yes, there is a microphone here, and that of course is.
It was working earlier.
There we go. All right, so things we're going to talk about. I've introduced myself.
So like I said before, my name is Officer Chase Cichetto. I've been with Bellaire Police Department almost 6 years now. Next week, actually, on the 12th. I am the newly community outreach officer. So no, like you knew JW and everything, and I'm basically JW's old spot, but it's a new type, so a new community outreach officer. So.
All right. So, like I said, the topic's going to be semi-structured. We're going to talk about the history of the department today. And then we're going to open it up for questions. Once the presentation is done, we are going to go on a tour of the building. So those of you that haven't been here before will get to see it. And those of you that have been here before may get to see it a little differently. So we'll go ahead and get started. I bet I'm going to have to do this every single time because we're sharing the screen.
Oh, that's the reason why.
Oh, maybe not. Okay, here we go. Good. All right. So the city of Bellaire was chartered on June 24th, 1918. And formed on that day, it formed. We had our own form of law enforcement, which is, and our first official lawman was J.B. Huddleston, who was elected town marshal July 15th, 1918. And the town marshal at the time did the job of the police as we know it today. But things were a lot different then. A lot of the things that they worried about were things like cows getting out of fields and coming into people's yards and that kind of thing. We don't really know a lot about Mr. Huddleston himself, other than what I found here in the meeting minutes. Okay. All right. So there were a succession of city marshals that were just doing the job of law enforcement and mainly cattle rustling or cattle wrangling, not rustling, through about 1947. And in 1947, the city passed an ordinance abolishing the city marshals and creating an actual municipal police department. And doing so, they appointed their first chief of police, J.H. Kerrigan, who looks like a character. That is the best picture I could find of him. All right, so this was the early Bellaire Police Station. It was actually on South Rice. Don't know exactly where.
So that's right here at the corner. This is the east lot right here.
Oh, that's the east line?
Yep.
Okay, well.
I knew that because my father-in-law told me. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, so, I guess that's the water tower.
Yeah,
behind
right,
it.
yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay, so, yeah, so apparently it actually faced Rice, and it was much smaller than the building we have today. And the uniforms are a bit different. A lot of those guys have their sleeves rolled up. I don't know if that's why today, but anyway, this is the photo is from the late 50s, early 60s, and you'll see that there's 12 total officers. So it's kind of neat. Ooh. So in 60-61, we went on, had a progression of chiefs. The next one in 60-61 was Chief J.P. Court. And here the photo you see is a mass swearing in of Bellaire officers. And that was actually the first time any of the Bellaire PD officers were actually sworn in. Before they were just like given a badge and told to go to work. Policing was way different back then. Here's a fun fact. This little table here, which I don't know if you can adjust the light so they can see it. All right, that little table thing in the middle is actually in my office right now. It's the chief is Chief Holloway and had it. The chief before him, Randy Mack, had it around, and it's just stayed in the police department somewhere. And I currently have it in my office. It's actually holding up my printer. But anyway. So this was the first Jessamine police station. Here was the first flag raising. This guy right here is Joe Merrick. He is our bailiff right now. He looks a lot, well, actually, he does not look that different. He's a little younger, a little thinner, but that's Joe Merrick, our bailiff. And he had the privilege of doing the first flag raising here at the station when it was open. Now, so by 1969, the police department had 18 total uniformed policemen and 5 reserve officers, and there was one sergeant assigned to each of the 3 patrol shifts. They had no formal training requirements. Like I said, they just gave them their badge, told them to go to work. But after September 1st, 1970, police officers had to be certified. And that was when TCOL, or used to be called T-Close, the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement Officer Standards and Education, that was first formed on September 1st, 1970, which explains why our training cycles run September 1st through August 31st, because it goes off of their date of inception. So after 1970, the officers had to be certified. Officers that were already working actually were grandfathered in. They were working, they had a job, they were able to just be grandfathered in. They didn't have to go to an academy. Though at the time, the chief, Jerry Lofton, was sending up officers a few at a time to the local training academies, so they would know things like the proper way to do things or the official way to do things. Some of the officers that we had working here had gotten their policing experience in the military or had come from other agencies, so they did not. Things were a bit different way back when. The high school diploma was always required to be a police officer. So, and they also required them to get 140 hours of training, but they had a year to get it done. Though, like I said, some of them were grandfathered in. Here in Bellaire, there was not a formal FTO program, and conversations with Chief Holloway because he started in the 70s. He said that it wasn't until the late 70s that this police department actually had a formal FTO program, a formal field training officer program for the officers. So we would teach them how to do the job. Before then, it was, here's your badge, here's your keys, go to work. So Chief Holloway's FTO program consisted of him riding with a sergeant 3 days on 3-day shifts to learn the city and to find out where to get the car washed, where to get gas, and that kind of thing. But that was it. That was his training program. And as you probably have noticed in a lot of these pictures, bulletproof vests were not a thing, really. Not a lot of people wore vests. And the officers carried 38 revolvers, which is kind of cool. Fun fact: when I went through the police academy back in 1993, I had to buy my own gun because I went through a community college, and the first gun that I bought was a 38 revolver because I just wasn't. Because to me that was traditional. It was also what I could afford at the time. So that was my first gun. 38 revolver. I traded that in pretty quickly for a 357, and then from that I went to my first actual semi-automatic was the Smith & Wesson 4006, which is a 40 caliber stainless steel handgun, was a boat anchor. It was so heavy. But anyway, enough about me. The cars that back then didn't have computers; they just had radios, and a lot of the cars didn't have air conditioning. So back then, if an officer wanted to know if dispatch needed to get a hold of an officer, they could call them on the radio when they got radios. Before that, there was a light usually on the water tower that would turn on if dispatch had a call for an officer, and the officers were responsible for periodically looking over to see if that light was on. If the light was on, they'd know they'd have to stop and use the phone and call dispatch to find out what the call was. We've gotten a little bit more advanced since then. So this is our police department today. And now I'm going to turn it over to Officer McKenna.
All right. So, first things first, does anybody know the process of actually becoming a police officer? Like from nothing to actually being in uniform with a badge and a gun? Okay. All right. So the minimum requirements to even be a police officer is a high school diploma. You have to be a minimum of 21 years old with exceptions. That exception is if you are 20 years old and you start police academy, you have to have your by the time you get your license, you have to be 21 years old. You have to be a US citizen. You have to have obviously a valid driver's license. And for us, it is a requirement to have 2 years prior law enforcement experience, or 2 years military service, or 30 years of college at accredited university. And combination of 2 or more case-by-case basis may be used. So you might have a year in the military and then 15 hours of college or something like that. And so veterans must have an honorable discharge with a copy of their DD 214, and you must meet TCOL licensing standards, Police Academy. So I know Chief Lopez said earlier that whenever police officers first started going to academy, it was 140 hours, I believe it was. And then now it's actually up to 643 hours. And that's in Police Academy, 19 weeks. My Police Academy started January 4th, 2015 and ended May 28th is whenever I walked across the stage. So it's about a 6-month process of every single Monday through Friday. We had roll call at 7:45. We went to about 3 or 4-ish, and then we had PT after that. And sometimes we would have weekend events. If I went to the Alvin Community College Police Academy, and we a lot of times if we were missing hours or something like that, we would go to the Alvin Police Department and volunteer with them with like special events. We stop traffic and stuff like that for their parades, which is a pretty big thing. And so it was a long, grueling week, 19 weeks, but obviously it was well worth it. Hiring process. So let's say you go through police academy, you get your license. TCOL says, all right, here is your certification, your license to become a police officer. Does that make you a police officer? No, it does not make you a police officer. So a department has to actually pick up your commission. And from the time you graduate police academy, you have exactly 2 years to find a job. So I know a lot of guys I went through police academy with that actually, they never found a job in that 2 years, because getting a job at a police department is actually very vigorous. It depends on which police department you apply to as well. Bellaire has high standards for our police officers. There's a lot of stuff you got to go through. The first one is going to be entry-level written examination. Whenever I went through it, it was the examination that I took. It was a 50-50 pass rate, and it was a reading, math, grammar, comprehension. I can't remember the name of the test, but yeah, I can't remember either. But it was basically like taking the SAT, and so it's 50% of the people who took the test passed the test. But it's gone to a new testing that's more centered towards police officers, and it's the same thing though, grammar, math, reading, and you have to pass that. That is the first thing you do on application day. The second thing, so let's say you pass, right? You get a 70 or above on the test. The same day, you have to change clothes and go straight into PT. Our PT requirement, we have a pass-fail PT requirement. You have to run 1.5 miles in 17 minutes and 45 seconds. And then you have to do 25 push-ups, no time limit, and then 25 sit-ups in 2 minutes. And after that is completed, you are required to, they'll give you a date to turn in your background, your personal history packet. And your personal history packet is basically from the time you were born till now. What have you been doing since then, right? Because in law enforcement, whenever I came into this, it was explained to me like this: if we're going to give you a badge and a gun, we want to know exactly who you are, right? That's just common sense, right? So let's pass extensive background investigation. I'm one of the background investigators here. I go through everything. If you have an ex-girlfriend, or if you lived with an ex-girlfriend, I'm going to talk to her, right? Sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's okay. I just got through one where actually he worked at the same place with his ex-girlfriend, and that was a fun conversation. And so, but my investigator, Gil Macedo, which some of you know, actually tricked me whenever he was hiring me, because one of my first jobs ever was at Pizza Hut. I worked at Pizza Hut in Friendswood. I grew up in Friendswood for 2 years. I worked there for 2 years. And he said, hey, meet me at Pizza Hut. They said they don't have record of you working there. I was like, oh my gosh. So I show up to Pizza Hut. This is right after college. This is right after police academy. I moved back with my parents. I haven't married my wife yet. We were just dating because she said, in order for you to ask me to marry you, you have to get a job first. I was like, all right. What was first? Get a degree, then go to police academy, then get a job, then you can ask me to marry you. So this is in that time period where I graduated police academy before I got a job. So anyway, so I'm back with my parents. I am at Pizza Hut waiting for them to show up. My dad calls me. He goes, hey, they're in your room right now. I was like, what are you talking about? They're in my room right now. And sure enough, he's like, yeah, they're going through your room. I just let him in. I thought you knew about it. I'm like, I had no idea they'd be showing up to my house. So I get in my car, I'm rushing back home. By the time I get home, Gil is Detective, now Sergeant Macedo is actually walking through my front door. He's like, all right, we're done. And I was like, okay, awesome. And so I was like, thanks, Dad, for letting him ride on in, right? And so, it's just a home visit, to see, what you're like at home, right? Because you can say all day how I am, on person or on an application, but to really see your home is really to see who you are. Now, granted, I just got out of college, out of police academy. I play a lot of video games, so Gil today still makes fun of me of my room. So, and I had this whiteboard where my new now wife wrote all these messages on me and for me and stuff like that. It was really funny. He still makes fun of me. Anyway, so
I'd like to piggyback off of that. Where, site visits or home visits are very important because, just like you said, it gives you an idea of how the person is at home. You know, what are they a Slav? Do they have like devil worship stuff up and around? But hey, if it's your religion, it's okay. But it's kind of stuff that we want to know about. And we still do the home visits. When I applied to be the assistant chief here, Greg Bartlett, former, I guess it would have been Captain Bartlett, he came out and did my home visit. Was totally not expecting him, and so he knocks on the door. I open the door. He's standing there, and I was like, "Oh, hey," and he's like, "Hey, I've met him before." And he said, "Just here to do a home visit." I was like, "Oh, okay, all right, so no problem." And then all the blood drained out of my head. Now, the reason was because he was going around looking around the house and actually looking at stuff, opening doors and stuff. And when we got to the front hall closet, he opens up the closet, and there on the top shelf is an urn. So he looks at that, and to this day I can see his face. He opens the door and looks. He does that. And I said, "Look, I can explain." So this was like late 2018. My mom had passed away in August of 2018. So the urn was the ashes of my mom because she was cremated. Now, and we had them, and my dad had been staying with us, and my dad my mom and my dad were very close, and when he was with us, he wanted those out. We had them on the counter, and he had a candle there and everything, and it was very important to him to have it out. Well, when he would go home for the weekend, or we'd go home, and I don't remember what day of the week this was. It was Friday. When he'd go home, and he would leave the urn with us, and so my wife said, I don't want it out. No disrespect to your mom, but I do not want that urn out because it kind of freaks me out. I said, okay, no problem. We'll put it in the closet. So that's how. So I had to explain this whole story to Bartlett, and he is just chuckling, and I don't blame him. But so yeah, it's kind of a funny story. But just to wrap that up, the urn is now with my dad. He's back home. He's moved back home, and he now has the urn. So no, I'm sure, and it's out. It's on he's got a little place for it in a curio cabinet, so it's good. So yeah. So anyway, just thought it was a funny story.
Yeah, you never know what you're going to get with that because one of our sergeants here was actually boiling a deer head in his sink whenever the home visit came with him because he just got through hunting. And so one of the other guys who no longer works here, he was actually he's getting ready for one of the Comic-Cons here. And he was all dressed in costume to go. And so, yeah, you never know what you're going to get, that's exactly what it's for. But yeah. And then after that, actually it's kind of out of order, but we'll just go. So controlled substance screening, obviously you have to take a drug panel test to, that's pretty much any job. Physical readiness exam, this is for making sure that you have your vision, your hearing, and everything like that. Funny story, in my physical, I never told anybody this, but they put me in this box, to test my hearing and everything like that. Well, they push the button to start the test and they take off. And I'm sitting there and I don't hear anymore. And I'm sitting there, I swear it was about 15 minutes. I'm like, I failed this thing. They had forgotten that I was in there. Yeah. And I'm just sitting there in this box and I'm like trying to hear, and I'm like, I can't hear anything. And so, but yeah, they actually forgotten that I was in there, and they apologized about it and everything like that. But it was crazy. And then you have to do a psychological exam. This is a long, almost 700 question psych test. And then after that, you actually have to interview with a psychologist. And just to make sure that you're in the right mindset to do your job as a police officer.
Polygraph examination. I don't know if anybody here has ever taken a polygraph test. It is one of the most grueling things I ever went through, because whenever I was talking to the examiner, he was like, if you have to sit in this chair, hook you up, and he's like, if you tighten your sphincter, I'll know. And I was like, great. And so every question makes you question yourself. What's your name? Chase, you know. And you're like, did I answer that right? But you know, they get a good baseline and just make sure they're telling the truth about who you are. And the last thing, which I would say was the worst thing ever, was the oral review board. It was in the old station. It was in the courtroom, and I sat where all the defendants sit. And then I had 5 people going over my background investigation, my personal history packet and everything like that, grilling me for about an hour and a half of questions and scenarios and everything like that. And I thought I walked out of there, I was like, there's no way I got this job, because it's meant to be long and grueling, because they want to also see how well you do under pressure. And so it's a long process, but it's a good one. All right. So let's say you passed everything, right? Then you get your offer as a police officer at the Bellaire Police Department. That's whenever they will hold your commission. So after that, then what happens, right? So after you get hired, the field training begins. FTO, Field Training Officer program, is actually 4 months. Could go longer. Mine at the time, it was like 18 weeks. So it was pretty long. It was almost the same as Police Academy, actually. We have a couple phases, 3 phases of training. The first 2 weeks of you in uniform, you're not on the street. You're learning the system. You're sitting with dispatch. You are going through all over our policies, our general orders, because every single police department has their own set of policies, right? They do things differently. And so at the Bellaire Police Department, that's what that is. That's for. To go through to how Bellaire wants you to be a police officer. That is, and it's in a book, probably about that big, and you test over it, and it is a very, very grueling 2 weeks. FTO is not meant to be easy, right? Because I went from nothing to being this college graduate to now being a police officer, and it is meant to be hard. And the first person I was with is now Captain Heffron. He's got about a 50-50 pass rate. And well, whenever I went through, he had 50-50 because the guy before me got washed out with him, and the guy after me got washed out with him. And so that's actually 30%. But he's a very tough field training officer, and that's what it's meant to do, right? He's a military guy. He expects you to be the best. So the first phase of field training officer, whenever I went through it, it was a little bit different, but now it's basically you're thrown to the wolves. They want to see what you do, basically. You're shadowing the police officer for about a week or 2, just seeing how he does things. Depending on which FTO it is, they might have you drive probably on the 3rd day, because that is the best way to train somebody, is to throw them in the mix. Phase 2 is basically because right now we have 12-hour shifts. 12 hours is a long time, right? So we have a morning shift, our day shift, and a night shift. 6A to 6P, and then 6P to 6A. So that's what the phase 2 is, that you go to the night shift or the day shift. It's the opposite of what we started on. You do another, 6 or 7 weeks of the other shift with your FTO. At the very end, you had 2 weeks of what we call ghost phase. That's basically the officer you were with for this first part right here. You actually go back to them. But this time they aren't talking. They are not communicating with you in any way, shape, or form. You can say hi and bye, and that's about it. They want to see that you are capable of doing the job. And all they're there to do is to make sure that you know what you're doing. Okay. So the last thing you do after you actually finish ghost phase is you sit down with the chief of police and you will be released for full duty. So anybody have any questions on the process or the hiring or anything like that? No?
Do you have an age limit as far as the how too old to be hired?
No, sir, we don't. Some places are civil service. And so like League City, I think you can't be over 45 and apply with them. Some places are like that. Bellaire is not a civil service agency. So we're not limited to anything like that. Civil service is there to protect the officers, and I am personally against civil service because there's no reason for it, right? It's there we've never needed it, right? Because we've always had fair supervisors that treat us well. And that's what the civil service is there for, some of those bigger agencies to protect the officers from supervisors. Because it's a lot harder to get fired at a civil service agency after you've completed your first year of probation. And we've never needed that. So, but along with that, they have stipulations like you can't be over 45 and apply with them. But we're not like that. All right. So policing today. Bulletproof vest is mandatory. I'm in the station, I don't need it, but I have my big tack vest that I have, and because I'm also on our special response team, which is our SWAT team. And so at any moment, anytime, I could, be called to something. Did you guys know about like the Bellaire High School shooting? Right. So at the time, my daughter was about a year old. I was sitting there with her. I was playing video games, and I got a call, and I was like, great. And I told my wife, because my wife's the teacher, I was like, you got to get home now. I need to go. And so, but I had everything at the house and put everything on, and I was there in probably 25 minutes. So, especially in that sort of situation, thank God, right? Because there was a gun involved. And that's what we were going into. Most officers carry semi-auto pistols. I don't know any officers that carry anything other than a semi-auto. I know some of the old timers are like the grandfathered into it, but not even my father-in-law.
It's very rare to find somebody that carries a wheel gun.
Yeah.
Because you just don't have as many bullets, and it takes a long time to reload.
Yeah.
Is there a variety of calibers?
So just the main ones, right? 45, 40, and 9. I don't think we allow anything else. Yeah. So I carry the 40. This is a Glock 22, 40 caliber. So I came actually on at the Bellaire Police Department, and I had a 9. And back then, before kids, before marriage, I had a lot more muscle on me. And I was told that I was too big to be carrying a 9. And so that's whenever they handed me a 40 Glock 22. The department issued Glock 22 and said, buy your own eventually. And I was like, okay. And that's why I've carried a Glock 40, Glock 22 ever since. So, yeah. Because I actually got trained in police academy with 9mm. I was comfortable with it. They're like, no, you're too. I was like, okay, all right.
Do you have to buy it yourself?
So, yes, right. We will loan you a gun. Because obviously you need a gun to be a police officer, right? We'll loan you a gun until you can actually buy your own gun. So that's what happened with me. Because
all police officers have about the same duties, the same needs. So how come that they don't all have the same gun?
so some agencies are like that, actually. Like I was talking about League City earlier. All of League City carries a Glock 19, which is a 9mm.
Yeah.
But some people, like now that I've gotten comfortable with my 40 caliber, I love my 40 caliber. I wouldn't imagine I don't want to go anything else. It's just that versatility that really I love about the Bellaire Police Department. Some places are like that.
And so on that, there are advantages for everybody carrying the same gun. Like if everybody carried a 40 caliber in, then a 40 caliber Glock, and you think worst case scenario, if we get into a situation where there's a shootout and Chase goes down, then and I'm running low on ammunition, I can go over, grab his magazines and load up and continue getting into the fight. So there's an advantage there. A disadvantage there is that everybody is different. You mentioned him being bigger and the 40 and being strong enough for the 40. Like a Glock 40 caliber, that's not for everybody. The objective is not, it should not be for everyone to have the same gun. The objective is to make sure that everybody has a gun that they can shoot accurately. So, and what immediately comes to mind is we had used to have a female officer that we used to work with, that she'd gotten herself a 40 caliber because that's what she was peer pressured into buying. And she went to the range, she could never qualify with it. She was consistently getting stovepipes in the when she would shoot, because her wrists were too weak. And so the gun with stovepipe, and the stovepipe is when the bullet doesn't eject properly, and it just, the cartridge gets stuck in the ejection port. It looks like a stovepipe. So that kept happening to her because her wrists weren't strong enough. And so rather than force her to continue using that gun, we told her, you need to go out and buy yourself a 9mm. So she did, and shot a lot better. She was actually an excellent shot with the 9mm. It's just 40 she couldn't handle. So because of that, we allow the officers to have the flexibility to buy the gun that they're most comfortable with. I personally own 9mm, 40s, and 45s, and currently carry, what I'm wearing right now is a 1911 45. And it's just what I'm comfortable with. It's a 5-inch barrel, and you can drive tacks at 25, 50 yards. So it's just a very accurate gun. It's just whatever you want. Just we like officers to be accurate. Accuracy is more important than the size of the hole.
And I'm going to piggyback off that, because our qualification for our range for our gun, because we have to qualify. TCO requires you to qualify at a police department at 70% once a year, which means there's 50 rounds that you have to hit, and you have to get 70 of those, right? Or 70% of those, right? At the Bellaire Police Department, we qualify twice a year at 80%. That is the minimum that you have to qualify for. For the tactical guys like me, you have to qualify at 90%. And that's because we hold ourselves to a higher standard. Our qualification course is very rough. It's not like other police departments where you're just standing at, I don't know if you've ever shot a gun or anything like that, but standing still and shooting at a target, at a paper target, not doing anything. That isn't what we are in the business of, right? We are this course that we have right now. The first thing you have to do is pretend like you're writing a ticket, and then you have to get presented a target. You have to throw the ticket book, draw, and then shoot. And then that's where it starts at. Then you have to move back, and it's just very dynamic. We do things on the fly like that. And it's meant to do that because we've been in several shootings in the past few years, right? And we actually, basically, the way we set up the qualifications is to mimic the same things that these officers went through, right? Whenever Bob Voorhees was in a shooting right there on Forness, that's exactly how we set up our new training course for, right? Because the way he shot is he shot from the door and then at the back of the car, and that's exactly what we do. We train like that, and that's more practical than just standing there at a target, waiting for it to face, present it. All right, shoot 2 rounds. Okay, that's it. Wait for it. That's just, you're not helping anybody out with the qualification like that. So, okay. So onward to the next thing. Cars have radio, obviously, computers, cameras, and emergency response equipment. So a lot different than what policing used to be, right? We have a lot of gadgets in there, a lot of gadgets. Radio, computers. Now we have our nice laptops in there that you can take on the go. You can do reports anywhere now, which is pretty cool. Cameras, every vehicle is equipped with a camera if we have to take pictures of a scene or anything like that. Emergency response equipment, lights, sirens, all the bells and whistles. And then we can actually go, I don't know if anybody's actually ever been in a police vehicle before, but we can go down there here a little bit whenever we do it before. All right, flock camera system. Who's familiar with the flock camera system? Anybody? No?
Yeah, but that national night this week, so we've been
Briefed on it?
Tuesday.
Gotcha, yeah. So our flock camera system is probably the coolest thing we have. Basically, we have 10 cameras set up around Bellaire, and that are 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, are taking pictures of license plates that are flagged for something, right? Actually, for anything. Let's say a stolen vehicle comes through the city of Bellaire, right? We have a camera set up at 5400 Bellaire, and it's coming into Bellaire. So we know every single vehicle that's flagged for stolen vehicles, gang activity, terrorism, or I'm sorry?
Amber alerts.
Amber alerts, yes, sir. Amber alerts.
Silver alerts.
I'm sorry?
Silver alerts.
Silver alerts, yes, sir. And not only that, but we can actually tap into everybody's camera system that we share with, right? Fort Bend has some, Katy has some, Jersey Village, I think, has like 30 or 40 cameras. But we can view their cameras and they can view our cameras too.
We're told that some citizens just decided to buy their own flock camera.
Yes, yes. Actually, they did, and actually, we've used that flock camera system. It's funny you said it because one of the last calls I got on patrol before I came up in the office, one of the residents on that street had their house TP'd with a bunch of toilet paper, and it was a high school prank. And because the resident actually has a high school student on the baseball team, and it was actually one of the rival baseball teams. And so, but it was on a Friday night at 2 o'clock in the morning. Well, the only car that went through there at 2 o'clock in the morning belonged to somebody. And I called them up. I was like, do you have a son in high school? They said, yes. How do you know that? I said, because is he on a baseball team? He said, yes, he is on a baseball team. And I got to talk to him and the son about what he was doing in the city of Bellaire at 2 o'clock in the morning. And so, and obviously the dad was very embarrassed and very disappointed. And, but it was, it's a good camera system to have. Yeah. But actually that national night out, what time do you remember they came, the police officers came?
Tuesday night, 6:30.
6:30, okay. So at 5 o'clock, about 5 o'clock, we got actually a stolen vehicle hit, right before they came to visit you. And so, because my first house that I was supposed to, or the block that I was supposed to go to, actually they canceled on me as I'm pulling up to the house. And so I was sitting there and Chief Lopez saw me too. And we were like, man, what are we gonna do? And then all of a sudden we get an alert of the flock camera system saying there's a stolen vehicle. And that's what we went to. And we actually got into a little pursuit, little chase. They actually crashed out, the suspect crashed out at Bellaire and Academy, right there in Westview, or Stella Link. And we got both this, well, we got the driver in custody. And it actually had been stolen out of San Antonio. He's just driving through Bellaire. And so, but there was a lot of stuff in that vehicle that actually we found. So also too, I don't know if you've seen the news, how people have had their mail stolen and stuff like that. Well, we found a bunch of mail in this guy's car. And there was a gun in their vehicle as well. So they were up to no good. And the reason why we do that is why we have the flock camera system is exactly for that reason. Because there's some people, I won't say this, but there's only advantages to the flock camera system in my point of view. Because what happens is, if this guy had Bellaire residence's mail in his car, right? Now we know who stole their mail. Okay. And it's to prevent crime as well. Not just catch stolen vehicles, but let's say that you are a victim of if you're at your house, you're a victim of a burglary of a vehicle, right? But your camera system, or if a camera system doesn't catch the plate, but it catches a vehicle description, right? I see it's a silver Impala, going by. Well, in the flock camera system, all we got to do is type in a description of the vehicle. Yes. And so, and you have a time range, right? 2 o'clock, silver Impala at this time. We don't have a license plate, right? All we do is type in the description of the vehicle, and hopefully they pass one of those 10 cameras that we have set up around we have some around the major points of Bellaire, but it'll print out all the silver Impalas that were in the area at that time. And all we got to do is look up that license plate. Now, let's say they do have a fake license plate, right? But the chances are them changing out that fake license plate are nil, because what will happen is they'll come back the next day or the next week, and they will have the same license plate on their vehicle. Well, as soon as they cross that threshold into Bellaire, we get an alert on it saying this is the vehicle that was stolen, a bunch of stuff from this person's vehicle, and then we'll go from there. We'll have a fun day with them. So that's what the flock camera system is. It's great. It's some members of city council have been against it, but I only see advantages in it.
What were the primary reason for?
Because actually on Tuesday night, one of them showed up to my block party, and the way it was explained to me is that they don't want officers patrolling the major streets. They only want officers patrolling the neighborhoods, right? But the thing about that is we stop crime before they come into Bellaire, right? It's 99% of the time our residents are not committing the crimes. It's the people that are coming into Bellaire that are committing those crimes, right? And so to prevent that's why we have the flock camera system. So, but that was his explanation of why he's not for it. But then he's also talking about cost of the camera system. Each camera system, okay, whenever we first got the flock camera system, each camera is $10,000, and we have 10 of them, so that's $100,000 right there, plus the fee that we have to pay every single year, which is another $25,000. And so you look at West U's camera system. So our total cost for our flock camera system, $125,000 to initially set it up. West U's camera system was $4.3 million for their camera system.
Wow.
Yeah.
For how many cameras?
They didn't shop very well, is the moral of the story.
Right. So, and I don't know if you obviously haven't seen it, but ours is 4K resolution. Like, it is insane how how clear you can see those license plates. But yeah, they didn't shop around like you said. So, yeah. Drone with infrared camera. So the drone system is awesome. We've been on calls before. It's where that is the only reason why we catch the bad guys with our drone. Especially at night, they don't stand a chance at night. I'll give you an example. We had a burglary of a habitation over, I think it was Valerie, 5200 block of Valerie or something like that. Anyway, well, I went to the other side because I'm like, oh, if these guys are still in the house, they are probably going to jump the fence. So I went to the house, and sure enough, as soon as I get there, I'm walking up to the back gate, and they jump out right in front of me. And I'm like, oh. And they're like, oh. And I give them commands, and they're like, nope. And they turn around and jump the fence, and I see them jumping towards Chimney Rock. So it had to have been 5400 or 5500. So they're jumping, or I'm sorry, no, 5200. Yeah. So they're jumping fences to Chimney Rock right there. And so I set up a perimeter, and we have them locked in, right? They are not getting out of this perimeter we have set up. So we get K9 out there. K9 spent an hour looking for these guys. We got lucky with the first one because our residences some of them are very wealthy. And in one of the backyards, there was an entire tennis court, a full-size tennis court. Well, he face planted right on the tennis court, and his face was swollen about this big, and he was bleeding. And so he comes out of the bushes, dazed and everything like that, and we're like, oh my gosh, like what happened? And he's like, oh, I was playing football. I'm like, You weren't playing football in somebody's bush, like what? And so we got him in custody. And his buddy was still at large. And so, because we knew there were 2 of them in there. And so K9 spent probably about a good hour searching for him. Just couldn't find him. They hit on a house. And I don't know if you know how K9 actually tracks people, but it's through the adrenaline. So they track by adrenaline. And so they're going from backyard to backyard. They don't do it like by scent because anything can throw off a dog like that, but they track by adrenaline. And so they were hitting on the house. They were like, he's around this house or anything like that. So we put up the drone. We go to that house. He's sitting on top of the roof. And the only way we found it is because that drone had that infrared camera on there, and we could see his heat signature on top of that roof. And that's how we got it. Yeah, it was amazing. I actually have a couple videos with drone. How are we doing on time, Chief?
Yeah, we're doing a great on time, especially considering that the amount of the password to the laser shot.
Okay. But whenever I go to, I'm also on the recruiting team, and whenever I go to the recruiting events, if I have enough time, I actually show them a couple of really cool drone videos that we have. Yeah. So let me see here. It's just sharing that screen, right? So first of all, look how crisp and clear that video is. So this is a West U call. They actually called us up and said there's a guy burglarizing houses. Okay. And so he's actually Officer Lysack is one of our drone operators. He goes over there to West U. So that suspect right there, he finds the suspect in the backyard. Right here. So the suspect has no idea that the drone is right above him. And so Officer Lysack then starts, there's a West U officer right there. He's telling him, look, this is the guy right here. It's showing him. So you're going to see all officers start coming around this house, forming a perimeter because they don't want to see, they want to obviously capture the suspect. And then you're going to see an officer get really close, right about here. But there's something that the drone caught that never would have happened otherwise. And whenever you see it, you're gonna be like, oh my gosh. So this guy is trying to be quiet because these rocks right here, a lot of residents have rocks. Whenever we have alarm calls and we're trying to be quiet and all of a sudden we got to step on all these rocks, there goes our cover. But obviously it's a good thing because he knows that this can make a lot of noise. He doesn't know what to do. Because you have officers coming from every which way now. So it's kind of like he's wondering what he's going to do. He's trying to make a plan. And literally the whole time, if you look, he never looks up once. He has no idea. Now this is what, look at that. That's what the drone caught. Did you see it? You see what he did? He threw the backpack. Now his hands are up. He's given up. And what a shot that backpack landed in that big pot too.
So there is
Oh,
one,
there's the.
That's the officer right there. Yep.
so there is one officer who controls the drone.
Yes.
How do you communicate this information in time to the guys that are?
Right there.
Where is the drone operator?
So the drone operator is at his car, doing everything remotely from his car. There's another officer with him giving out commands to everybody on the radio. So that's how they're communicating right now. So there's another officer.
The other officer sees the image.
Well, yeah, he sees the images right there, and then he's actually telling, he's showing them and everything like that. And the other officer is on the radio saying, "Hey, this is where the suspect is," and so they get him in custody. Well, then Officer Lysak said, "Hey, he threw something. Here it is, right here, because this is a bush right here. All this is covered right here."
Yeah, so the officer on the ground cannot see.
Exactly. Exactly.
Guy was wondering, how does it know?
Exactly. Exactly. And then he tells this officer going to see him. He's going, "Oh, wait, what?" Because he's telling him right here, right now. He goes, "Hey, he threw something right over that bush." And look at that. Boom. So,
That's interesting.
yeah. And I'm going to show you guys one more video really fast because it's actually the story that I told you about. Yep. So here's the suspect right here on top of the house. At this point, we've already told him to start getting up, down, but you can see his heat signature right there. That's where he was laying at. And this is one of the big mansions. So that's the second story right there. And so the officers start telling him, start giving him commands and everything like that, telling him to get down. And you see K9 right there. Because they were hitting on this house and they were like, "Well, where's he at?"
Yeah.
And so, and then we actually ended up obviously capturing him. So. And then he saw his buddy and he's like, "Oh my gosh, what happened to you?" Because his buddy's face, I swear, is the biggest thing I ever see. It was, and then we transport him down to Harris County, and the county's looking at us like, "What did you guys do to this guy?" And we're like, "We didn't do anything to him. He face planted on a tennis court." Well, that's what at nighttime, that's what I'm saying. At nighttime, they don't have a chance. They don't. During the day, they might, but at nighttime.
During the day, the drone would have seen it too.
Right, but it's not like this because, like I said, you can see it's still hot up there, right? And we actually got back up there on the roof because we were like, he threw something right here because that's what we were thinking. But that was whenever he just sat there for a while and then actually laid down right there. So. Little thing too, Houston doesn't have drones. And they've called us to scenes before.
Right.
Yep.
And how many drones do you have? One, two?
We have, yeah.
We have a small one that was our original one. It was a kind of a tester, and then we go on a slightly, then we went from that to like a slightly larger one, and then we went to like the big professional grade stuff, and then so we have 3 of them.
Okay, you start small just to
Exactly.
practice here.
Because the lens itself, I think, is like 25 or 30 grand for the lens. Yeah, just for the lens. That's not the actual drone itself.
Yeah, they can be a bit pricey.
All right. I'm going to give it back to Chief Lopez. Do you want to do this one or you want me to go on this one?
Yeah, this is the department today. We have 3 divisions within the department. We have, obviously I'm the chief, and then I have an administrative secretary that works for me. And we have someone that is in the Office of Professional Standards. Well, we'd like to have somebody in the Office of Professional Standards. That position is currently vacant. But what that position would ordinarily do is They would be in charge of training for the department, making sure that the officers keep up with their training. Also, but it's also charged with administrative oversight of the department. If officers are, when officers engage in any kind of misconduct, that office would be the one to hold them, that would do the investigations. So it's a critical oversight component here in the department that we currently don't have filled. We're making do right now, but it's something that I'd like to do in the very near future.
Somebody that has policing experience.
It would be a police supervisor. So somebody yes, that has experience and is familiar with that. The assistant chief we currently have vacant. It was an administrative decision, really as a salary savings more than anything. Because we're all one city, and we were asked to see where we can make cuts, and the not having an assistant chief actually enables me to spend more time developing out our captains and our civilian operations manager. So it ended up actually being a win, because I'm a firm believer in mentoring and in developing up the next generation of leaders, preparing people for that next level of leadership. And I would, instead of just doing that for one assistant chief, I'm able to do that across our 3 divisions with the division commanders. And I really do have been encouraging them to further their formal education, and I meet with them regularly to kind of share my leadership philosophy and really help develop and grow them as leaders. But anyway, so we have 3 divisions. We have our uniform services division, which is just about everybody that wears a uniform except Officer Loquetto. And then we have our support services division, which is everyone else that carries, just about everybody else that carries a badge in one way or another, which includes our community outreach officer, uniform support, that's our 2 bailiffs. And they're in charge also of our criminal investigations division. We have 4 detectives, 3 permanent detectives and 1 rotating detective, 1 civilian evidence technician, and 1 civilian crime victim specialist. In our civilian operations division, we have our communications officers, which is our telecommunicators or dispatchers, and our records division, and they report to her. So we have it out spread out like this to try and reduce span of control, because the more people you supervise, the less effective you are as a supervisor. And so by reducing span of control across the department, then we are able to enable those supervisors to have more one-on-one contact with their employees, and really we're trying to push more hands-on, more involved supervision of the employees, so that we can ensure that everybody's doing the job the way that we expect them to do it.
And yeah, currently,
So we ran over that. So next. So aside from that, getting into the specifics, we have 2 dedicated full-time records clerks. They're actually not records clerks. We have what we call an information coordinator, who is our custodian of records. She is responsible for the security and transfer of all our documents, whether it's to the DA's office or to the state. That's her job. And we also have a records, actually she is a records clerk, but who assists her in doing that job. So just in these are our numbers from 2018. We go through a lot of reports. They are responsible for walk-in report requests, public information requests, phone call intake and processing. So anytime somebody calls up and they reach records, their job is to make sure that they go to the right person. If they're calling up wanting information on a case, then it's their job to forward that phone call to the detective that's working the case. Yes. So our dispatch center is staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They are responsible for our police dispatching, fire and EMS dispatch. They take all our emergency 911 calls. They also dispatch for our animal control function. And they handle just about any after-hours citizen request for city services, whether it's after-hours public works or water or sewage or whatever. Those calls come into us. because we have the staff on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They're also responsible for the after hours jail inmate care, because we have a jailer, but he's only on during regular business hours. So they're responsible for keeping an eye on the inmates in jail and making sure that that they're safe. So they stay pretty busy. Up here on the back, you can see, and we'll see it when we do the tour, you'll see the screens, but that's how they keep track of everything. They've got monitors everywhere. And the stats are a little low, but just in 2018, they handled over 29,000 calls for service. So that's pretty impressive. It's last year, I think it was more, 32,000, I want to say, but well, actually, it's actually not that important. Okay, good. In our jail, again, old stats, back when the jail, and that's because this is when the jail was open and fully functioning, because once COVID hit last year, we pulled back on a lot of the things that we were doing. We wanted to make sure that the employees stayed safe. So we were not allowing them to go out and make arrests or really stop a lot of cars, because we wanted to reduce that face-to-face contact out of concern for the spread of the COVID virus. So these stats are from 2018. We went through over 1,000 people came through our jail. And we handle them for municipal warrants, for traffic misdemeanor arrests, and also for felony arrests. When we encounter anybody that has a Class B or above charge, Class B, Class A, state jail felony, or any other felony, they are with us a very short amount of time, and we transport them to the Harris County Jail. So we do a lot of business in the jail.
Were there any learnings from that COVID experience where you didn't stop as many people, or was there anything, a negative effect of that?
Well, the negative effect of that is now, the caveat to this is the purpose of traffic enforcement is not citations. It is to correct or improve driver behavior and to calm it's traffic calming measures. And the objective is never to write citations and never to generate revenue. That being said, because we made fewer traffic stops, we wrote fewer tickets, and fewer cases went to court, and there was a reduction in the amount of revenue or of fees collected because of the citations. So we also have an animal control officer. The position has currently been reassigned, or the officer, this is Officer Perez, is a great employee, great asset to have here. We moved him from the animal control function where he stayed busy, but we felt like he could do more. So we moved him as our full-time jailer. And because, like I said, he's a valued employee, great employee, and he's doing a jam-up job there. And we are currently hiring for an animal control officer to replace him. And we are, and you can see that we handle quite a bit of loose animal calls and any other kind of animal call. Right now, we're fortunate to have a partnership with the Friends of the Bellaire Pound that are assisting us with the operation of our pound. It's a short-term holding facility for stray and abandoned animals, and they have been wonderful at helping us take care of the animals out there. They go out there regularly. If we have an animal in our care down there at the pound, they make sure that they get they get exercise, they get fed, they get water, they need medicine. They make sure the medicine is administered. So it's a great partnership with civilian, with private organization, and us making sure that animals are properly cared for here in Bellaire. So, yeah. Our property room is, they're responsible for all our items of evidence. Anything we take in evidence, Officer Lopez mentioned the mail that we found in the back of the car. That stuff is going to end up is in evidence. We have a big evidence area. She's responsible for storing the evidence, but in some cases also processing, looking for fingerprints and collecting DNA stuff off of DNA spawns off some things we take in. So she's also supposed to do a annual property disposal and assist us with that disposal and destruction. So that's pretty important because we're starting to get a bit full. So I mentioned before, TCAL, the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, they oversee us as law enforcement officers. They require us to have certain amounts of training. So if you think about this, The training standard is very low. For our continuing education, professional development, we're required to have 40 hours of training every 2 years. That's 1 week of training every 2 years. It's not a lot. And we've got guys running around here, driving fast cars and carrying guns that only require to have 40 hours of training every 2 years. We don't believe that the minimum is the standard. One of the things that we've done here recently is pushed for an increase to our training budget so that we can ensure that the officers are better trained. We want to make sure that they go out and get the training that they need, because my philosophy is a better trained officer is a better public servant. And the better if they do their job better, then they're better serving the community, and that's what it's all about. So, but there are training cycles, and again, the TCOL was founded on September 1st, and that starts our training units. September 1st through, we just ended one here, September 1st, 2019 to 8/31/2021. So there are some mandated classes, if officers that don't have an intermediate, because the TCOL has different levels of certification for officers. There's a basic, intermediate, advanced, and master. And you get that based on your formal education and on your years of experience and your training hours. I'm at a master level right now. But if you don't have at least an intermediate, there are some other courses that TCOL requires officers to take, which include cultural diversity, crisis intervention training, special investigative topics, which is kind of a catch-all, and de-escalation. Our telecommunicators are also required to have a minimum of 20 hours of training, but again, I'm pushing them to get more than that.
So to kind of give like something in the perspective, my college hours combined with my training hours as a police officer, I have a total of 3,200 hours of training. So, and TCOL only requires 40 every 2 years. So kind of give a little perspective on the training hours here.
So for training, we give officers training on things like court security, criminal investigation, variety of topics, critical incidents. We want them to be able to know how to respond to critical incidents, field investigations such as drugs and narcotics, homicide and death investigation. Those happen rarely here, but they do happen. We want to make sure that our detectives or officers are prepared to investigate that. Tactical hostage negotiation. Eventually, we're going to need guys with the hot nuts. But anyway, also we have and just basic patrol tactics, making sure that we're at the cutting edge of what the information that's out there, so that officers will know what to expect out there. A great example of that is fentanyl. How fentanyl came up, and it's just a powder, and it's something, and you would think just looking at it, it's nothing, but it's so very dangerous. So we make sure that officers get trained on things like that. And also leadership and supervision. I mentioned that I like to, one of the things that I'm passionate about is mentoring and bringing up that next generation of leaders. I want to make sure that the supervisors and the officers that have potential for leadership get that training as well. And finally, internal affairs, because eventually officers are going to engage in misconduct, and there's two different kinds of misconduct in officers. They're what I call mistakes of the heart and mistakes of the mind. A mistake of the mind is a misunderstanding of procedures, of not misapplication of the law. It's something that happens because the officer just didn't know. That can be corrected with training. A mistake of the heart is different. A mistake of the heart is when somebody does something wrong intentionally and doesn't expect to get caught. And you can fix a mistake of the head, but it's very hard to fix a mistake of the heart.
Well, that's a mistake. That's what that's the fault.
Yeah.
Big difference.
There it is, and I look very critically at that. Mistakes of the heart will get somebody separated from the agency faster than anything. That's not the kind of officer that this agency deserves, and it's not somebody that I want working for me.
All right, patrol. So this is the city of Bellaire. Every single day that a patrol officer comes in to work, they are assigned a district. we separate Bellaire into 3 different districts, okay? District 1, obviously, is the left side of, here's 610 right here. This is the west side of 610, south of Bellaire Boulevard. This is all one district right there. The second district is everything east of 610. That is district number 2. District number 3 is conveniently coming to our busiest district, which is actually our smallest district, but it's everything north of Bellaire and west of 610. So at least 1 patrol officer is assigned to each district every single day. And on whenever we do have more officers, they're assigned to everything. They're kind of floaters. If we have more than 3 officers at a time working, and we also have 1 supervisor, at least 1 supervisor per shift. So you will always see at least 1 supervisor and then 3 patrol officers on duty at any time during the
So
day.
you said, District 3 is busy, business plan?
It is becoming very.
Where all businesses are.
Exactly. And so that's what the issue is. I mean, we just got earlier today, there was HEB just called for 3 different shoplifting, you know. Also 2 Walgreens is right over here. You know, the transit center brings in a lot of stuff. People try to steal stuff and then run to the transit center thinking that they're going to get on a metro bus and never be seen again. But yeah, you're exactly right. That's exactly what it is. It's the business district. So.
These, maybe a lot of questions later, but I was gonna say, do you think the development of north of Hornets will increase the load on requirements for police?
It will, and I'm anticipating us needing at least 1 more officer on duty at all times. So, so instead of our minimum being 1 and 3, it's going to have to move to 1 and 4. We'll have to assign 2 people to that District 3 just for that, because it's going to be a great development for
So has
Bellaire.
that already been discussed with the city council?
That actually is going to be just brought up when we do our management study presentation for them, because the management study did recognize that. They did recommend that we add additional officers over the next couple of years in preparation for that and to handle that when it is finally built out.
So policing by the numbers. As you can see, that we've had a pretty decreasing crime this whole time. 2019, 2020 is whenever COVID started hitting. Things got a little hectic for a little bit, but it's actually projected to be a lot. And this is the numbers that I pulled from August. So it's actually projected to be about roughly the same. But more people are at home, people getting laid off from their jobs and everything like that. People getting more desperate. These criminals are going to take advantage of that, which is what answers for that spike right there in 2020. So that is the crime rate.
So that would be the total number of reportable offenses or part 1 crimes. Things like the burglaries, that mostly property crimes.
Mm-hmm.
So, and like I said, people get desperate, they steal stuff or whatever, come to Bellaire and victimize our residents, and that's what is responsible for a lot of that increase in crime. So that's just the numbers. So 400 cases, even if it's in the grand scheme of things, doesn't sound like a lot, but it is a lot for Bellaire because we are a smaller community. 400 cases from someplace like Paramount, that might be 2-3 months of numbers. So just it's kind of relative.
So continuing off that, so these are the numbers for 2018, 2019, 2020. So, and also you're going to say that, holy cow, that's a lot less, but this is because, like Chief Lopez said, we weren't interacting more with, traffic stops and everything like that, because we're trying to prevent the spread of COVID. Because at a normal job, if you could just work from home, right? I cannot do my job. I cannot police from my office at my house. I can't do that, right? So we were trying desperately not to spread, not to get officers sick, and keep them at work. And so that's why these numbers right here are actually really low in 2020. But it actually improved our average response time, right, to a call, right? Because we're doing a lot less than we normally do. We are able to get somewhere a lot faster. So.
What percentage of the crashes are on?
Oh my gosh. If I had to throw a number out there, I mean, probably,
50%?
I would say
Oh,
80%.
It's 80% of the crashes that we do to go on the freeway.
Do we get money for that from the state?
No, but tow truck drivers do from towing vehicles. So. And these are just breaking down the, so you were wondering before about these numbers right here, right? So this is actually where these numbers come from, right? So offenses, 2017, 2018, 19, and 20, right? So like I said, 2020 was kind of crazy because more people are at home, more people are getting desperate, more people are getting laid off, right? They got to come up with money somewhere. So that's whenever we see this spike in crime. And that's what we were expecting to happen in 2020. Okay. Yes, sir. I'm glad you asked that because a lot of people get those confused, right? So you have something in your garage. You have your leaf blower in your garage. Okay. I come into your garage, or you know what? Let's say this. Let's say you have a pickup truck and you have something in the back of your pickup truck, and I take something from the back of your pickup truck. That is considered a theft. Okay. What people get confused about and what Hollywood and everything else is saying, oh, that was a robbery. That wasn't a robbery. What a robbery is if you on your person have something and somebody comes up to you and says, give me what you got. That is a robbery. That is not a theft. And so a lot of people say, oh, somebody robbed my house. Well, in the state of Texas, we don't have a robber at a house because I'm thinking like, how can somebody, it just doesn't make sense to me. Right, we have a burglary of a residence or a burglary of a building, exactly. The only time a robbery is whenever you have something on you, on the person, and somebody says, give me your money, give me whatever you have on you. That is a robbery. Everything else is a theft. Taking stuff from a grocery store, that's a theft, right? So, homicide, sexual assaults, but some of these property crimes, like burglary of a building, that jumped up, almost doubled from 2019.
Yes, but here, 2020 is the time people are at home. They are at home, so they're obviously much less.
Of the residences, exactly.
But they are home, that means they are at work.
Exactly. Exactly. You hit the nail on the head right there. Yes, sir. That is exactly it. So that is exactly it. But also too, these robberies, like I said, people are getting from 2019 to 2020, people are getting more desperate. So people are, you know, they're doing more crimes whenever people are out in 2020. So
yeah, because the robbery is a great concept.
Mhm.
It's a small number compared to the other, but the trend is that.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna let Chief Lopez take over.
Yeah, so one of the things that we kind of mentioned is that we don't have as many officers as we'd like. And so what that means is we have to kind of spread out our officers and use them and deploy them as intelligently as we can. And we can do that through what is called Ddax, which is a data-driven approach to crime and traffic safety. That is a model that looks at the location, it's location-based crime and traffic data to establish effective and efficient methods for deploying our resources. It's just a fancy way of saying that if we know that we're having a bunch of traffic crashes, let's say at the intersection of Bellaire and Rice between 1 and 3 in the afternoon, that tells us that we need to have officers in the area of Bellaire and South Rice between 1 and 3 in the afternoon. And so that is that is what we want to move to. One of the things that we need, though, for this to be applied effectively here in Bellaire is an updated computer system, something that will give us the information that we need to be able to make those deployments as we need. And our existing software system just won't do it. It was installed here in 1999. And it doesn't give us the data that we need. It doesn't do the mapping that we need. This was before GPS was even common, so it doesn't really. It's very hard to get data out of it. So the goal, of course, is to reduce the incidence of crime and crashes and traffic violations in the community. And by doing that, we reduce social harm, because we know that a lot of the offenders that come into town, that a lot of the people that commit the crimes in Bellaire aren't from Bellaire. I did a study a couple of years ago where found that better than 90% of the people that we arrested in any given year didn't come from Bellaire. And so they're coming into town somehow, they're driving into town. And if we can get them on traffic stops, if we find them on traffic stops or perform interdiction before, or interrupt them before they come in to do their whatever crime they're going to do, we reduce incidents of social harm. We reduce those thefts. We can reduce auto thefts, and all that through increasing our enforcement of traffic laws. So anyway, so I'll let you guys can read the slide there, but it does exactly what I said. It just enables us to deploy people more intelligently. So we are working on better community engagement through social media and Twitter. So please look for us on Facebook, like us on Facebook, follow us on Facebook. We're trying to get more followers.
I'm trying to make a little feedback about that, but
I'm sorry.
no. I was kidding. I'm trying to make a little feedback about that, but right?
Oh, yeah,
Oh, yeah, no, that's not, we try and be as positive as we can. Now that we're opening back up from COVID, we are going to get involved with our community engagement events, such as Touch a Truck. We have a existing program called Home Safe Bellaire that is intended to help us identify at-risk individuals in town, and if they go missing or wander off, we'll be able to get them home safely. This is our, so what is that?
It's the cop on top.
Yeah, the cop on top of Dunkin' Donuts as a fundraiser. We also do House Watch, Shop with the Cop, we do in December. Special Olympics fire truck pull, we'll be doing that. Are we doing that this year?
I don't know. Probably not.
Okay.
Because the Special Olympics actually canceled a bunch of stuff this year. So because of the second variant of the COVID stuff.
Okay. And of course, National Night Out. We're also doing something new, Coffee with a Cop. Once a month, we're going out to area, I say area, but it really should be Bellaire businesses, and go out and talking to people and interacting with them on one-on-one, non-confrontational encounters, just to get to know people, let people know that, hey, we're just like you. We are, we're parents. We've got 4 kids. I'm married, and we let them know the human side of us, so that they get to know us and we get to know them in that same way. So it's a good exchange. We'll be doing the next one. I think this month will be at Magpie's Gifts. I just don't have a date and time yet for that.
I have a question. That I believe it's 1957 Chevy Bellaire.
Oh, yeah, the 55, yes.
Was it a real police car from that?
No, it was not. No, it wasn't. We had it. Somebody had this wild idea to get a vintage car and restore it, and it is a Chevy Bellaire, and so fitting for the city. But it's great. I actually took it out on National Night Out. I was driving around. Found out the hard way that it's got an exhaust leak.
We took it to Washington, D.C. too. Yeah, and that was really cool.
On a trailer, I guess.
Yes, sir. I don't think it'd make it that far away on the trailer.
Yeah, but one way that you can stay engaged, not just with the city, but with the police department, but with the city, is to sign up for the Notify Me. And I'm sure that they probably pitched that to you in the first meeting, but it's just a good way to stay engaged. You You can sign up for different kinds of alerts. Know about well, we're not doing the crime profiles right now because of we don't have staff dedicated to that anymore. But you can sign up for a bunch of other city notifications. So this is my, I don't know if it's going to load. Oh, it does. So I really like to end presentations with this because it's a
policeman is a composite of what all men are, I guess, a mingling of saint and sinner, dust and deity. What that really means is that they are exceptional, they are unusual, they are not commonplace. Buried under the froth is the fact. And the fact is that less than 0.5% of policemen misfit that uniform. And that is a better average than you'd find among clergymen. What is a policeman? He of all men is at once the most needed and the most wanted, a strangely nameless creature who is sir to his face and pig or worse behind his back. He must be such a diplomat that he can settle differences between individuals so that each will think he won. But if a policeman is neat, he's conceited. If he's careless, he's a bum. If he's pleasant, he's a flirt. If he's not, he's a grouch. He must make instant decisions which would require months for a lawyer. But if he hurries, he's careless. If he's deliberate, he's lazy. He must be first to an accident, infallible with a diagnosis. He must be able to start breathing, stop bleeding, tie splints, and above all, be sure the victim goes home without a limb. The police officer must know every gun, draw on the run, and hit where it doesn't hurt. He must be able to whip two men twice his size and half his age without damaging his uniform and without being brutal. If you hit him, he's a coward. If he hits you, he's a boy. The policeman from a single human hair must be able to describe the crime, the weapon, the criminal, and tell you where the criminal is hiding. But if he catches the criminal, he's lucky. If he doesn't, he's a dunce. He runs files and writes reports until his eyes ache to build a case against some felon who will get dealed out by a shameless Seamus. The policeman must be a minister, a social worker, a diplomat, a tough guy, and a gentleman. And of course, he'll have to be a genius because he'll have to feed a family on a policeman's salary.
So I like to end these presentations with that because I think it really is, it really kind of is all encompassing. That's Paul Harvey, and he does great. The rest of the stories, if you're not familiar with those, it is they're really good, and that one just really touches me because it really does highlight the expectations on both sides for a policeman. So with that, we'll answer some questions as we go along. I know that we're timing at 9 o'clock, and we've been sitting for a very long time. I'm going to reward you guys for your patience. I had these challenge points.
Thank you.
That I had made up when I became chief, and because leadership is important to me, it has a leadership quote on the back, which unfortunately is very hard to read. But it says the pessimist complains about the wind, the optimist expects it to change, the leader adjusts the sails. So now with that, we would like to take you guys on a station tour. So do you want to head that up?
Yeah, all right.
You guys-
You log your stuff here?
Yeah,
You can log your stuff here, and we'll be back. We're gonna end the tour here too, yes.
You want to wear masks or you can just get?
That's up to you.
Okay.
All right, so for friends that are online, we are going to be walking around. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to take you with us. So thank you for participating. Thank you for listening. If you send an email to Raquel, she will be able to send you the printout of the presentation. So thank you guys. And
Okay,
And,
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
all right, thanks. We'll close this. This.